Sup nerds, I'm Tom, and today we're going to talk about why Marvel Villainous is significantly better than Disney Villainous. So we do have our thoughts for the base game of Villainous and actually every expansion for Villainous thus far. I'm not going to really explain to you, how to play this game or really do a thorough comparison of it to regular Villainous. But I'm just going to tell you, my thoughts on this and kind of at least why I think it is significantly better than regular Villainous. So if you actually have seen our thoughts on the base game of Villainous, I wouldn't say that I disliked it, but I was just kind of like, it was okay. It was kind of like right down the middle. I did end up liking it like a little bit more with more of the expansions. Like I liked some of the other characters a bit better. I liked that Dr. Phallus or whatever. I think the Pete was actually pretty cool. As the game, or I also really liked, what's his name? Hades, I liked him a lot. I actually tend to like the simpler characters in Villainous because, they always have their asymmetric way to win. But when that way is really complicated, it kind of becomes less fun and less and more about where I find scenarios where I say, okay, well, since I'm supposed to do X, or I'm supposed to be able to do X, how does that affect the rules for how exactly this works? And what if this happens? And isn't that a little bit, like that? Sometimes I can get down into the nitty gritty with that, and I feel like I just want to play the game. So the simpler characters that have a more straightforward way of winning, I like those more. In this game, you get Thanos, Ultron, Hela, Taskmaster, and Killmonger. And at the time of this recording, at least, I probably might even play it a couple of times more before I even put this video up. But at the time of this recording, at least, I have played 3 different characters, and I've seen every single character being played. And I will say that Thanos is definitely the most complicated, and probably Taskmaster is the most straightforward, but they're all relatively medium weight, with the exception maybe of Thanos, because his thing is a bit complicated at first to get, but after, seeing him being played twice now, it's oh, I get what you do. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It seems difficult, and it is more difficult than the other things, but it's pretty straightforward. I do think it is a little bit weird that you only get 5 in this. I'm pretty certain that in the base game of original Disney Villainous you got 6, and even the box does say, which this part I think is kind of weird. Where is it? Come on. It says 2 to 4 players. And I'm thinking, well, if there's 5 characters, why does it max it out at 4? Is it a balance issue? Is it the number of cards in the Fate deck isn't enough? And I was honestly thinking, what if it's just that there aren't enough tokens? Because when we were playing even with just 3 players, and we're starting to run pretty low on Fate tokens, and I'm if that's really the answer, then I'm gonna be pissed. That is one slight negative, I guess, that this game has compared to original Disney Villainous. However, one of the complaints that I had with original Disney Villainous is that it can kind of overstay its welcome, and especially when you play with a large number of players, it can kind of really drag. And I had a friend who said, oh, I have a hard cap on Villainous at 3, I won't play with more than 3, and I would maybe play with 4, but I'm pretty reluctant to play with 5 or 6, so maybe that isn't a negative on this one. Hey, there's only 5 characters, well, who cares? We're not going to play with 6 anyways, at least at the same time, but hey, we could have got a 6th character. Where is Loki? And I guess since we're already talking about comparing it to the base game, the other biggest difference that this one has is that there is a shared Fate deck instead of everybody having their own Fate deck. But each deck of cards, like Ultron here, does have a small little couple of Fate cards that all get mixed together. So there's basic Fate cards, and then everybody else's Fate cards that all get mixed together. And the let's say Ultron's cards can be played on anybody, but they're kind of most effective when they're played on Ultron, right? But now the Fate deck has more than just heroes and those instant effects. There's a bit more depth to the Fate cards. Also, this one does feel like it's pulled back on the take that aspect. Those cards in original Villainous where it would say something to the effect of when another player does this, that will trigger the fact that you can play this card. Once another player has X number of power, you can do this. Or once another player moves like this, you can do this, right? I haven't noticed any of those cards at all so far. I haven't seen every single card in this whole game, but I haven't really noticed that. And overall, the game just kind of feels like it gives you more tools. It feels like I'm doing more strategy. Where in the base game of in Disney Villainous, I feel like it's more luck. I'm just digging through my deck to try and find one card. But in here, I feel like you have more tools and there's more pieces to the puzzle that can help you versus just trying to find the 3 things that you need to find in order to make it happen. Now, granted, are you going to dig through your deck sometimes to try and find some cards that you really, really need? Yes, that's still going to happen. It still is basically Villainous. But I don't know why. I can't really quite put my finger on it. I think the lack of that take that aspect is a big part of it. And I think they maybe just refined the way you get the way you like get to your goal. Like they give you more cards, not just to directly facilitate you completing your goal, but to give you other options on how to complete your goal. Like Taskmaster, for example, he's actually probably the guy that I like the most because he's pretty much the simplest, and I tend to, like I said earlier, I tend to like the simple characters in Villainous. But he just needs to have 4 different allies on the board, all with strength of 5. Well, that's really straightforward, except all of his allies have strength of like 3. So you have to play, there's tons of different cards and different ways that you can add strength to them, you know, and in the way that you can defend them from when they're trying to vanquish heroes that are there and stuff like that. Like, it's just you have a lot of different ways to go about doing this one thing. And it's more than like, you don't have to just fate other players in order to hinder them. Like, honestly, ignoring a global event and letting it sit out there could really hurt somebody for a while, you know? Wes has all of the stuff for original Disney Villainous, and that was totally fine for me for a little while. But I sleeved the cards of this game because I'm like, I really like it. I want to play it again. I'm really glad that this exists, first of all, because Villainous is a very good intro game, and especially with the Marvel theme, it's going to pull more people into the hobby. But I want to play this, like, it's actually something that I kind of, like, want to play, not just with intro gamers, you know, except for the fact that, you know, I sleeved this game. Game has a really nice insert, but doesn't hold sleeve cards, so it's gotta go. Overall, I really am surprised at how much I liked this game, or really at least how much I liked it more than Disney Villainous. Like, I always thought Disney Villainous was, you know, again, a decent game and like a good system, right? With like the scythe action selection, and you could cover up some symbols when you fate people, you know, and the asymmetrical way of winning, but I always felt like it had a couple of flaws, and it was a little bit janky at sometimes, you know, there was too much luck of the draw, and here I feel like they really kind of like cleaned it up and polished it, because, you know, having developed the game over a couple of years now, I think they know what they need to do, and they kind of address those issues a bit. I'm really happy with it, really excited. I probably still think I like Taskmaster probably the best. I like Hela. She's pretty cool, but she's almost a little bit too easy to hinder. Like, all you have to do is fate and put one hero there at the Odin's Vault to stop me. I mean, that's like pretty easy to stop. Killmonger is also pretty cool. His probably made the least amount of sense, so to speak. I mean, I guess if you've seen the movie, you can follow it. But, you know, he's like, you do this, and then do that. Like, I mean, Ultron had a sequence too, right? But he's made more sense, like, thematically. Like, just upgrade here, and then upgrade there, and then upgrade to this, and then you finally upgraded all the way. You know, I think Ultron is a more clean version of what Killmonger does. And Thanos, obviously, you know, go out and collect all the Infinity Stones. Everybody knows that by now. But the only other thing, I know I'm ranting and raving here, but one more thing I want to say about comparing this to Disney Villainous is that in Disney Villainous, you are mostly comparing, you're like playing out the movie, you know, like you're mostly getting the feel for that like one movie that, you know, Captain Hook was in, or that Jafar was in, you know. Basically, there's kind of like the story, right? But in here, you kind of encapsulate the legacy of that character in comic books and the movies throughout all these years and stuff. So I think that's really cool. Also, I just can't wait for Avengers to stop being so popular so we can finally get X-Men in some of these Marvel games. Magneto and Apocalypse and stuff in this, and that'll be cool. Anyways, I've talked for long enough. If what I was talking about in this video sounds interesting to you, I'm going to put a purchase link to Marvel Villainous in the description box down below. I'll probably put Disney Villainous down there and other stuff. There is also in the description box down below, there's a link for Game Toppers. That's what we've been filming on and we've been playing on in here. If you've been seeing us on our Instagram and stuff playing on this, and you're like, wow, that looks really dope, I gotta check that out, you definitely should. Link in the description, bro. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you will never be bored. Finger guns, boom, boom, boom. That's how we end. That's how we end every video.